Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe. Ja, wie gesagt.
Ja, ich mache das mal. Ich mache jetzt die Kamera an und sage dann einfach noch, dass wir noch 2 Minuten brauchen. So. 2 more minutes.
Genau, sag mir einfach, was ich zu tun habe.
A few months ago, I visited my parents in Western Germany. I had to change trains in Cologne and was waiting on the platform when I suddenly saw a cat walking down towards a train. I thought, oh my God, I have to somehow catch that cat before it ends up under that train. Since my childhood, I always had cats around me, so I knew how I needed to behave to have a slight chance of catching it. I slowly followed it, walking calmly and making myself smaller and smaller not to scare it. At a distance of about 3 meters, the cat stopped, sat down, and turned its ears towards me. So I also stopped, squatted down, and stretched one arm towards the cat to greet it. It refused to turn its face towards me, so I started talking to the cat. I said, "Hey, what are you doing here? You are not supposed to stroll around in the train station." The cat hissed quietly for a second, then started stretching its legs for about 10 seconds and then jumped onto the train to Sweden. I was irritated and decided to inform the train personnel, when my phone suddenly rang. I answered it, and a voice I never heard before said to me, "If you really like cats, you better don't try again to tell a cat how it is supposed to behave on this planet. You know, cats have 9 lives, and you have not even lived once."
Bist du sicher, dass das richtige Video war?
Jein.
Ja, egal, lass anfangen. Okay, so hello everyone. A very warm welcome from our Užupis University student flat. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Max Harich. I am the director of the Užupis University's Institute for Applied Paradox, and it is my duty and pleasure to host this event today. I will first briefly explain what Užupis is before I present today's agenda, and then introduce our incredible guests who joined this madness in order to make all of us a little more wise and foolish than we were before. So let's start with a very short description of Užupis. In the first place, Užupis is the name of a district in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site of Vilnius Old Town in Lithuania. After the breakdown of Soviet Union, the area was mostly abandoned and dominated by poverty and violence. In an attempt to save the lives of the remaining citizens, a group of artists decided to take responsibility for the area. They proclaimed the Independent Artists' Republic in 1997 with their own government, constitution, and way of life based on love, humor, and paradox. Today, about 7,000 citizens live there, including about 1,000 artists. The spirit of Užupis is promoted by more than 600 ambassadors and honorary citizens worldwide, like His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. This is no joke, you can ask him yourself. So, the Republic of Užupis is a living proof for how humor and paradox can solve problems which could not be solved otherwise. To further study and spread that paradox approach, all the ambassadors were invited to share their perspectives at the Užupis University. I have the honor to head the university's Faculty on Arts and Technology, including the Institute for Applied Paradox. The Institute is an experimental lab in the playing field for mind games and seeing exercises. We conduct artistic research to explore the unthinkable. And this is our first public event. The aim is to give you an insight into the various areas where paradox ideas are applied and to discuss the general potential of paradox thinking, to tackle the challenges of our times. This is an experiment. We have no idea whether this will work out, but we hope we all have fun. So let's have a look at the agenda for tonight. You're about to hear a siren of a police car. And additionally, you get mind-bending ideas by the most outstanding experts you could imagine for this topic. Each of their talks will show different perspectives on paradox and different ways to apply paradox thinking. We will start with a talk by the Austrian sociologist Franz Nahrada on paradox and the mind. Franz will explore the general potential of paradoxes to liberate us from mental prisons. The second talk will be given by the Croatian media artist Rebecca Merlic on paradox and the body. She will present her feminist project Glitch Bodies as a way to overcome hegemonic perception of the binary body to achieve all gender equality. For the third talk, we invited Dr. Ulf Hengstmann, the digital lead medical affairs and pharmacovigilance. Sorry, I knew
Pharma something.
I knew this word would kill me. Pharmacovigilance at Bayer. Under the headline of Paradox and the Machine, he will envision the disruptive consequences of present and future breakthroughs in quantum computing. After a short bio break, we will listen to 2 people who are most to blame for that I am doing what I am doing today. First, we will listen to the Lithuanian poet, translator, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Užupis, and pro-rector of the Užupis University, His Excellency Tomas Čepaitis. He will present how he created paradox on Earth in Užupis on the basis of an examination of the works of the rationalist René Descartes and the Prince of Paradox, Gilbert Keith Chesterton. Our final speaker will be the French-Armenian designer of experiences, filmmaker, and founder of the University of the Underground, Dr. Nelly BenHayoun-Stépanian. Under the headline Paradox in the Sky, she will talk about her space research and explains why we need to look into the sky in order to better understand our Earth. Each talk will be about 50 minutes with a short bio break after the third one and a discussion with all the speakers at the end. We will try our best to save some time in the end for audience questions. If you are interested in anything particular, please post your questions here in the chat or below the YouTube live stream, including the name of the speaker to whom I should address the question. Before we start with the first speaker, I'm more than happy that the director of the Cultural Department of Munich, Dr. Anton Biebel, agreed to speak a greeting word.
Thank you, Mr. Harish. Can you all see this picture? Yes, great. You know, this picture shows how I feel. I feel like we are fixing problems every day, but the problems don't become less. Every day, me and my amazing team from Munich's Cultural Department work very, very hard to tackle society's challenges with the help of our city's artists and cultural makers. But whenever you think you found a creative way to address a societal issue, a new problem pops up somewhere else. I start asking myself, what is wrong with today's society that so many people act so aggressively and selfishly, not just towards each other, but also towards nature? I mean, we all know about climate crisis. We all know that we are about to go extinct if we don't drastically change our lifestyle. Can you imagine that there are people out there who consider the climate crisis as a business opportunity? They try to sell us more energy efficient products as if we could save our planet Earth with more products. Why are we unable to notice the absurdity of all this? What makes people think it is rational to treat their brothers and sisters like enemies? What makes people think it is rational to treat our planet as they had a second Earth in the trunk of their car? What makes people think such strange and so-called rational thoughts? On the other hand side, how could we enable people to think totally different thoughts? How can we leave this familiar but fatal terrain of rational thinking?
Excuse-moi, what is wrong with rational thinking? Yes, it's me, René Descartes. Let me tell you, rational thinking is the best. I love rational thinking. I love it because it is logical, so consistent, so precise and so on. Everything else is just woolly bonky bullshit.
I am very sorry for the interruption. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Descartes, but could you please hold your breath until the Q&A session? Thank you. Please, Mr. Biebel, go on. I'm really sorry for that.
Never mind. So if I understood Mr. Harish's weird presentation at my office correctly, this is what this symposium is about. This symposium could be a small step towards crossing the invisible borders of our rational minds. It could give us a little hint on how to think of what we cannot even dream of. It could help us to explore the unthinkable. For this experiment, I wish you all the best. And let me please use this opportunity to also say thank you to my colleague Laura Sanchez Serrano for her courage to support freaky projects like this. This is exactly the kind of project that help to make Munich a bit more weird. Therefore, I hereby announce that Laura will be awarded the Cultural Department's Employee of the Year. I will also double her funding budget, hoping that she will invest all of it into Ushupis projects.
Oh, Mr. Biebel, I don't know what to say. This is so kind of you. I am very honored to become Employee of the Year, and I'm grateful for having my funding budget doubled. But I cannot promise to give everything to Ushupis. There are so many other wonderful artists and initiatives in Munich, and maybe we should first check how this event is going.
You are right, Laura. Take your time to think about it. Anyways, let me finish my little speech by saying, dear speakers, dear audience, dear organizers, enjoy the evening. Stay woolly in the head and bonky to the bone. Thank you for your attention.
Oh my God, Mr. Biebel, thank you so much for your nice words. I don't know what to say. So maybe it's time now to start with our first speaker.
Hey Max, I wanted to say how happy and grateful I am now that I see that humanity might finally be waking up.
Wait a second, aren't you Judy Barry, one of the first environmentalists fighting for the protection of nature?
Well, some say so and some say so. Anyways, I just wanted to underline what Mr. Biebel said, we really have to change the way we treat nature and each other. For this, we have to change the way we think and see.
Nature is neither logical, nor consistent, nor precise. It is alive, it is beautiful and it is paradox. So fuck logic, long live paradox, let's get bonky 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 and a little woolly woolly in the head. I'm out, my friends.
Did she just say fuck logic?
Oh no, please not him again.
I am a bit, let's say, surprised about this event and all the insults against my work. Whoever organized this event never ever read any of my publications. I am truly disappointed by all of you, by the organizers as well as the audience. F you and au revoir.
Phew, okay. Now for real, let's start with our first speaker, Franz Nahrada. Let me quickly introduce him. This is how he describes himself. My life is a bit paradox. As a child, I expected to study chemistry, but became a sociologist. In the midst of my studies, I decided out of political reasons to refuse an academic career, but work as a hotel assistant. That led me to computers and knowledge organization and back to the fringes of science. I also wanted to change the world by thoughts and ended up but only work by examples. I found out that examples lead patterns. I fell in love with certain patterns, and I had to understand that the village of the future is a product of the global city. Dear Franz, the stage is yours. All right. Franz, could you please show your beautiful face into the camera?
Yes, as soon as you allow me to, or the host allows me to.
Yeah, we will try our best to do this immediately. We will make you a co-host now, and now you should be able to do this.
1, 2, 3.
Ah, yes.
Bingo!
All right.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. From Bad Radkersburg, the Ushupis embassy at the Slovenian border. I'm very honored to open this chain of speeches celebrating the paradox as a form of discourse and art. And sorry, no pictures, no PowerPoint, just speech and a little bit lengthy, but I hope you will not give up. I think I was considered for this event because 12 years ago, I organized a conference on non-academic theory together with Peter Weibel, that some in the art world might know very well. The conference tried to show that valuable intellectual contributions to our understanding of the world often go unnoticed, unrewarded, and unseen. We called this conference, therefore, The Invisible Intelligence. And I had a free choice of inviting all the interesting people that I thought fell in that category to the conference. When I chaired the conference, though, I had the feeling of revelation that maybe there was a good reason for the little reputation that my speakers enjoyed in broad public. Because they were all locked in their own belief systems, in their mode of thinking, and when I brought them out of their silos, the result was rather disappointing and cacophonous. Eventually, in the aftermath, I tried to save what I could by editing the proceedings and showing that indeed each mode of thinking that I introduced there could possibly be seen as a way to overcome the specific shortcomings to another mode produced. I identified and differentiated 3 fundamental modes. In critical theory, we do not have a sense for wishes. Neither we do care much about the conditions of success. We try to uncover the real nature of things and how we might be fooled by them. In visionary thinking, we tend to neglect the reasons why most of reality is hostile to our wishes. And again, we also neglect practical requirements. We just try to see what this world could be if it really worked well. In pragmatic thinking, finally, we often misunderstand the fundamental flaws in things that we try to use. And we also tend to forget about our inner direction, our most fundamental values that the visionaries and the artists manifest. We try to break down our attention to the next possible steps. So I came up with the idea that we should establish a more tolerant culture of theory, but not the pluralistic one that says anything goes, but rather an equivalent of the Indian medicine wheel. Knowing that we have several intelligences in our body and in our society, in our body-mind, and that each intelligence has its own function, its own justification, its own mode of productivity, and that we fare best when we know when to hand over from one intelligence to another one. Paradox, as you all know by now, is composed of the 2 parts, Greek words para and doxa, which mean beyond or beside, and belief. A paradox is either a statement which runs contrary to what we believe, or a statement that refuses to establish or strengthen a belief. It could make sense in another belief system, and it forces us to look beyond the foundations of what we believe. But always the ultimate fallback is the necessity to believe something. Dieter Doom stated recently, it seems our whole well-being, our energy, our success in life and love depends on what we believe. If a cancer patient receives a drug which is praised, his chance for healing rises. If he hears it's a fake, the filament of doubt make his power of resistance extinguish. If a devout Hindu swims in the poisonous water of Ganges and even drinks it, he walks out stronger, while a Westerner might get stomach cramps at least. It seems very attractive to be able to deliberately choose belief systems like Harry Palmer and his Avatar school promise. Yet it is a paradox to put believing above knowledge. And we cannot relate anymore to the famous passage in controversial church father Tertullian's piece on Christ's flesh that everybody also knows. The Son of God has died. It's believable because it's paradox and impossible to understand. He is buried and rose from the dead. That is completely certain because it is impossible. Credo quia absurdum. The belief to be able to simply nullify our scientific understanding for the sake of believing is more than paradox. It is a disgrace to what makes us human. The concept of multiple intelligences engaging in inner dialogue seems more elegant for me. And this means to be able to work with paradoxes. You all might know the famous story of Marshall McLuhan, who received the proof print of his book, which was supposed to be titled, "The Medium is the Message." Instead, the title page read, "The Medium is the Massage." And you know what? McLuhan did not get angry, but amused about the gift he had received. In fact, the paradoxical title had expanded the meaning of his book to 4 different strains of arguments that expanded the original intention with a message. The medium is the massage, the medium is the mass age, The medium is the mass age. This flexibility in accepting seeming paradoxes corresponded with McLuhan's general theory that any dominating trait of human communication or artifact was subjected to a historical dynamic by which each medium at the same time retrieves or obsoletes another media, reinforcing a one-sided present condition that inevitably would lead to a total reversal of this condition when the medium has played out its function. Let me conclude this talk with a practical application. My main concern is the paradox social transformation of our time, which has very much to do with electronic media. McLuhan coined the term global village, and although he was hooked on TV, his paradox of the electronic media applies equally and even more to the internet. The term global village is by no means a quaint, pastoral, idyllic term. It describes a reality that incites pain and trouble when we are plagued by sight and sound with whatever is happening in the world as if it happened in our village. This means overload, stress on our nervous system, chaos. It is prone to trigger hate and aggression. It is prone to disrupt belief systems and yet inciting the need to refuge into belief. In fact, the internet has led to the emergence of bubbles of belief more than any other medium before it. We seek refuge in bubbles of resonance and we experience comfort in this resonance, only to discover that we strengthen the contradictions between belief systems and experience their collisions even more brutally when we leave our bubbles. Belief systems are not just a phenomenon of the mind. They require the world to be shaped accordingly. Belief systems are the essence of culture. A friend from Tamara wrote, "We are trapped in endless possibilities, conflicts and contradictions that exists in the whole of humanity. For example, the contradiction between wanting clear leadership and wanting to be responsive to all voices, or between intimacy with one person and sensual adventurousness with many, or between the desire to be non-violent and the desire to eat meat that still occurs, between the desire for truth and that of not hurting one's friend, or between the need to make money and the need to leave the capitalist system, and so on and so on and so on. How to resolve this situation in the most human way? McLuhan has described another paradox that I suppose could unfold a new and maybe ultimate meaning of the term global village. He talked that any new media revolution has led to a cultural renaissance combined with acts of expansion and aggressions at least every 400 years and accelerating. But the first global renaissance has a different trait. Instead of expanding an explosion, the dynamic of the electronic medium could lead to the very opposite. In a statement sent to me many years ago by his widow Corinne, he writes, "The powers of globalization and global communication, when pushed to their very extremes, inevitably will reverse into an unprecedented renaissance of the local." In his writings and speeches, he talked of the great implosion that we have ahead of us. In accord with Leopold Kohr and Fritz Schumacher's "Small is Beautiful," McLuhan seems to predict a world in which a settlement in the size of a village will have the power that we find combined today in large cities. There are many converging factors that support this prediction more than ever. Intelligent automation, enabling complex local production, decentralized harvesting of energy from sun, wind, biomass, geothermal sources, the ability to open source and share all knowledge needed between these smaller habitats around the world, the emergence of a post-fossil chemistry that turns biomass into raw materials, 100 times the productivity of industrial monocultures because of local synergy, especially in agriculture, the emergence of more flexible systems of transportation, solar-powered drones and such. Above all, the virtual channels of communication, as we are just using them now, enabling us to stay connected. Of course, this all theoretically enables us to be nomads and choose our living place by resonance. The place we live might increasingly be chosen intentionally. This is why I think we will see the beautiful paradox that seemingly opposing worldviews might find a way to finally coexist. We can live it out in different places without disturbing each other. We could build a world where Mother Earth again is dressed in the bright colors of the diversity of cultures, which allow different answers to pressing questions, and which for some might be shameful, painful, outdated, and hurtful, while for others they are true solutions. It required that we cooperate nevertheless globally, and we have only this one consensus, namely that everything has a place as long as it lets live and respects everything else. And that each culture also respects the basic human right that every single individual at every point of its development may change the geographical cultural sphere of its manifestation without suffering harm. Thus, our current global competition would just turn into a race for the most beautiful and attractive sphere of living. And of course, we could support each other because we don't want to get overrun by so many. I want to conclude with the assumption that micronations like Uzupis are the forerunners of such a world. They express, maybe in the borrowed clothes of old institutions, that we should respect and welcome the coming age of villages in a similar liberating way like we once eerily welcomed national states as a liberation from feudalism. I sit in front of two flags. One is for the earth, my true home. The other one is for one place I honor and support. It even can be more than one place. It's my choice. Now, isn't that a paradox? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Franz. I have to tell you, I believe everything you say, especially about the Republic of Užupis, of course. So thank you very much for this. And now it's my pleasure to announce the second speaker for tonight, which is Rebecca Merlic. And Rebecca Merlic retreats between Tokyo, Munich, and Vienna. She recently graduated with distinction at the Academy of Fine Arts, where she studied under Wolfgang Chapella, François Rocher, and Michael Hansmeyer. In her studies, she specialized on analog and digital art as well as architecture. Her work is strongly influenced by alternative ways of society and transgression in socio-economic conventions, as well as new forms of architectural production in employing new technologies. During her master's, she was able to study at Atsushi Kitagawara lab at Tokyo University of the Arts Geidai. She's a holder of the Marianne von Willemer Prize 2020, congrats for that, for digital media and the Merit Scholarship of the City of Vienna. Her work is also on display at ADAF Athens Digital Arts 2020 in Greece and Ars Electronica in Linz, as well as the Austrian Cultural Forum Tokyo. So welcome, Rebecca, and we're very excited about your talk.
Yes, thank you for the nice introduction, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to join the symposium, and it's like unfortunately online, not in person. I'm Rebecca Merlic, and I'm a media artist currently based in Vienna, and I will talk about the paradox in the body. And give you some examples of my work, my latest work, Glitch Bodies, and also the paradox, the body paradox in the city as a house, as well as gender dysphoria project I did in 2017. And yeah, I will share my screen now. I hope you can all see it. Wait. So paradox in the body. I will start with the paradox in the body in my computer game, the city as a house. So in 1903, Hermann Muthesius said, Japan is in many respects the country that comes closest to one's dream of paradise. The current situation in Tokyo allows for the emergence of turbo-dense, capitalism-driven space generators for satisfying one's personal longings and needs. Is a new form of nomadic living, not only being constructed in the digital and virtual space, but also in concrete space. Shifting privacy in non-domestic spaces can lead to different architectural consequences. The city as a house depicts an illusion of private ownership of a place we call home and transfers it into the cityscape where the human, especially the human body, occupies a certain amount of space while moving or resting, depending on the time and need. What does it mean to be freed from craving a nest? A strategy of successfully surviving without being bounded. It proposes a new form of society, the next self-improvement of humanity, or going back to our roots. A visual novel built with a game engine to open up digital space for the human user, for you, to relive experiences and open up new spaces. Oops. It's not working. Vast amounts of pictures, sounds, videos, and 3D scans are organized as environments. In the city as a house in form of an interactive visual novel, it's a work about the experiment of me, of a white European 30-year-old heterosexual human living in Tokyo without inhabiting a private apartment over a period of time. It's a speculative exploration of the possibilities of abolishing known forms of habitation. The city as a house shows the ability to see the existing human condition and transfer it through data gathering into a digital world, where every decision is based on previous encounters, creating a never-ending world of choices. Skyrocketing property and rent prices, unstable job market, and uncertain relationships drives the human to develop in different directions than society wants us to live. It shows a journey of a body creating his, her home without physicality of objects, but dreamscapes. A city built on one's own memories and experiences. It sucks the player into a world where reality is so mixed with the digital, you get lost in your own existing body. A totem of life. Digital environments, as many different types of publics, creates the opportunity to produce and access experiences with leaving your own body. Now I want to show you a teaser out of the city as a house in relation to paradox and my own body. Standing in front of the koi sign made out of textile, which is moving in the wind, bowing and taking a small step to enter the locker area. The entrance. Taking off my shoes and stepping out to the bandai. The old lady is sitting behind it, smiling at the gaijin. I pay 360 yen and 50 for the towel. Soap and shower are included. No baggage needed. After stripping off my clothes in the dressing room, I store them in a locker with a wooden key. I enter the bathing area. I can feel the steam rising from the three
小さなスペースで、私は鏡の前で自分の体を観察する。3種類の浴槽は、これでランドのスープのように受け立ち、きれいな私の体が入っていくのを正しい設計を浴室の真ん中にあるディスペンサーが見る。Okay, it seems the internet is kind of not working, but yes, I just wanted to show you a quick video of my work. The City as a House. Let's talk about a different topic of gender dysphoria and the paradox of the body. So what does conflict mean? The opposition in an individual of incompatible wishes, of needs of approximately equal strength. An instinct is an inherent pattern. The sense organ is triggered by an electrical impulse, a stimulus, and the individual reacts to it. In a different system, the instinct or desire might seem abnormal, amoral, grotesque, depending on the system or society. Gender dysphoria is the state of being lost. It is the inner conflict of not living in the body of one desired gender. We located all the official 18 genders of Thailand in one diagram. By giving them point cloud spread depending on their relation of sexuality and appearance. We see absurdity of categorization to dissolve in a blur. We interpret the state of being lost as a maze, as a search for new identity and multiple transformations. Not into the 18 genders of Thailand, but going towards infinity. A heterotopian, non-panoptical space, a heterotopian, non-panoptical space in opposition to hetero-white architecture, libidinal urbanism. We created an embassy which lets your drive run and frees your libido. A scenario based in Bangkok, a heterotopian, anti-white male architectural metastructure, filled with and by people who form it and transform themselves within it. Gender dysphoria, it's a game of transformation, a catwalk of voguism, exhibitionism, and voyeurism. It's not a building, it's a body without skin. After sacrificing a skin, like ghosts in a shell, people are living inside of their dysphoria to arrive in a refuge zone in the paradox of schizophrenia and dysphoria, a stage of in-between. A non-linear situation, a heterotopian, non-panoptical sequence of zones, which are wet, glitchy, dirty, slimy, warm, reflecting, foggy, and sensual. Gender dysphoria is the state of being lost. We interpret the state of being lost as a maze, as a search for new identity and multiple transformations. Not into the 18 genders, but going towards infinity. For me, infinity of gender is traversing also into political positions as well. So transparency, resistance, digital skins, gender as a playground to show the opposite to binary. Experimenting with tracking and scanning the body, working on the topic of glitch is one of my newest research topics. I believe the world is a better place with more creators in it. The future of media art creation is real time, delivering everyone unprecedented artistic freedom. I want to create, iterate, collaborate in real time, to bring artwork interactive to humanity. On the one hand, the pandemic has also brought structural injustices and systemic injustices more into focus. On the other hand, digital virtual art and environments has moved more into the spotlight and into our lives every day, especially in the field of art and technology. It is a call to build just networks of support that focus on the weakest. I want to create opportunities with new technologies and co-creative processes for interdisciplinary collaborations, where personal stories are at the center. One could say that media art is an expression that constantly renews its own genre, with a tautological definition of media as the art of thinking about media. Some of what is or could be called media art today has in many ways become more firmly established in society. For me, also the future of media art lies primarily in working with virtual political spaces that address issues such as gender, biopolitics, feminism, social inclusion, migration, and class difference. I also see the testing of technological boundaries as a strong focus of my work. So for me, the future of life lies in merging knowledge of computer games and translating them into experiences for the body. Huge amounts of images, sounds, videos, and 3D scans are organized as environments in form of a visual novel and a game engine to create experiences. I make use of digital tools and computer programs, and now I have found a cinematic tool, the game engine. A game engine is a tool that has been specially developed for the creation of digital worlds in computer games in which you can move freely. In my game Glitch Bodies, I want to use my expertise and build film scenes with the help of 3D scanners and 3D modeled objects to capture bodies, which can then be experienced interactive. The creative process is not done by me alone as an artist and filmmaker, but also in co-creative processes with the protagonists themselves, who in a very intimate and personal way will bring closer their own story, their paradox. I want to engage in co-creative and coexisting processes with communities to explore the possibility of melting reality and virtuality. To lose the body. So Glitch Bodies, it's not a porn game, it's not an ego shooter, one shall not kill. It's not a multiplayer, it's no 8-bit, it's real, fusing virtual, digital, and real. It has no end, and it's non-linear, like humankind. So portals of glitch sucking you in an eternal loop of experiencing bodies, minds, and thoughts. The game is a safe platform for different and infinite number of non-heteronormative gender positions. Queer in the meaning of political attitude, of power critique, linked with a life beyond heteronormativity. The game engine as a mother creates safety for ourselves. And in ritualizing the celebration of us within the world, inside the world, to generate and open up new perspectives for the player, for you. So we refuse to be hewn to the hegemonic line of a binary body. The world within a world is instantly familiar, full of ambitions, wishes, and desires. All about strong and sensitive collaboration with the all-important issue of all gender equality, transformation, and definition. So the more protagonists gather in glitch bodies, the more the world is shown a high resolution of gender, so to say. As Mark Aguilar says, These Are the Axes, bodies are inherently valid. You should remember death and be ugly, no beauty. It is complicated. Empathy, choice, reconstruct, reify, respect, and negotiate is the core of glitch bodies, the backbone of the project. So to seize multiple selves is therefore an inherently feminist act. Multiplicity is a liberty, and glitch is all about traversing along edges and stepping to the limits, those we occupy and push through on our journey to defining ourselves. Glitch is also about claiming our right to complexity, to range within and be beyond proverbial margins. And yes, I want to end my talk with a quote from Walt Whitman's poem from 1892, Song of Myself. Do I contradict myself? Very well. Then I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed it and enjoy the rest of the symposium.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for this wonderful talk. Thank you so much for the insights into your impressive Tokyo mansion and your glitchy mindset thought world. Thank you very much. And now it's my honor to introduce the next speaker before we have a short bio break. And this will be Dr. Ulf Hengstmann. I think we can watch him give a talk straight from his from the cockpit. Oh, no, now he's somewhere else again. Okay, great. But I have to warn you, he's an addict. Addicted to digital transformation with 30 years of experience in biology, genomics, market intelligence, IT portfolio, product, program, project, and line management. That's a lot. Ulf got his PhD in microbiology and genomics at the Max Planck Institute for Terrestrial Microbiology, Marburg. After postdoc awardee, his business stations were the Georg Thieme Verlag, Stuttgart, and the Bertelsmann AG before he joined Bayer in 2002. He is digital lead medical affairs and pharmacovigilance, supporting Bayer's path in digital transformation. And now we are very curious about his thoughts on paradox.
Thank you, Max, so much for the nice and warm introduction, and also thanks to Frank and Rebecca to their fascinating contributions to this event here. Now I will try to share my screen, and hopefully everything will work fine. That's always a challenge a little bit, but also Rebecca supported me some seconds before. So yeah, I hope now we're at full screen. So I would like to talk about the paradox in the machine with special respect to quantum computing. Thanks to Max, I can quickly skip this because it says, let's say what he already mentioned. And one of my guiding principles is innovation is just a thought away. But today we're here to talk about paradox. So first, when I started, I must confirm I didn't spend so much time thinking about paradoxes. But then when Max approached me, I started as a scientist first check for definitions. So paradox, something contradictionary, and it's I would say statement of phenomenon which is contradicting the general expectation or the normal understanding of the terms are concerned. Some meaning tells us it's absurd, it's false assertion, stuff like that. But to be honest, at the end, it's more, it points to higher truth. So and that's a philosophical point of view, and the philosophers are, I think, more close to that understanding. So to me, it was like paradox, always indications to take a closer look. So really start loving them. We'll try to go to the next slide. There are numerous examples of paradoxes. So I like save money by spending it. Or this is the beginning of the end. Also like a scientific perspective. It's in the direction of more the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradoxin, and that's about quantum mechanics. And it tells when Einstein developed his theory at his point in time, he really struggled with that quantum stuff. And he said, like, okay, it's not so nice. I really don't understand what they are doing. So he spoke of a spooky long distance effect of those quantum particles. And it's due to the fact that that violates one of the basic assumptions of classical physics, this entanglement. So, and that was really hard for the people who lived at that time to start to understand that. And just remember, Einstein himself postulated a theory, which at that point in time, when he postulated that, not that much people understood. The other thing I really love about paradoxes in science is Schrödinger's cat. So Schrödinger did a thought experiment where he coupled, let's say, a cat together with the properties of quantum mechanics. And that leads to the point that a cat could be simultaneously be both alive or dead. And that's paradox, I would say. Okay, yeah, today, and also my speakers beforehand, they already pointed out that we live in an area of increasing acceleration of change. And what we see, and also the introduction speak of a culture minister of Munich here told us that our today's systems are reaching their limits. So our today control and command-based systems will reach their limits. We see it everywhere: wake of climate change, lockdown, storming the US Capitol, and so on and so forth. However, the command control principle is very old. It starts in, let's say, in the war and in the military area. So at some point in time, they recognized that when the atomic war came up, that they will lose the possibility to continue their command and control systems. So they started creating the ARPANET. And this ARPANET was like, okay, if you have a control, then you can, let's say, create a network of decentralized structures that can take over control when the others are destroyed. So that was ARPANET. And then they opened it to scientific institutions, that net, and then they opened it to everybody. And now, today, we name it Internet, and we see e-business and digitalization. And it's a kind of a maelstrom, that digitalization, and this will challenge us in the future and will transform all the well-known systems, even in a speed that I think will overwhelm us as a society, and not just purely mentally. When you think of companies, or at least companies, they're very often facing innovators' dilemma. So that has been published by Clayton Christensen in late 1997. And he demonstrates that really successful companies can do everything right, but they lose their market leadership, or even, let's say, worse, and getting bankrupt. And just take a look. I just did a small exercise. You see here this Fortune 500 companies. So on the left hand, you see those in 1989. So it means the leading companies when it comes to revenue. So you see here General Motors, Ford, and Exxon on top. And today you see Walmart, Sinopec, and State Grid. And just look, 3 from China here. And here I did the connection. So who stayed at that area in the first 20 for 30 years, and only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies did that. Interestingly, one of the companies is Toyota, and they did Six Sigma and all that stuff. So really innovation stuff. They're very, very open to let's say, also paradoxes. I will come to it in a second, how that combines together. If you think of innovation, very often everybody says it's a hockey stick, like, wow, and now it's going on. But in reality, it's an S-curve. So you see the first invention, Then you got a peak where you have this exponential growth, and then you're facing a limit. So we as an example here on a computing technology, you see it first, second, third computing technology, and then maybe now, as we think of quantum computing, means using quantum mechanics to foster computing. This might be the next wave of innovations. So, and that's also very important for pharma. Just think about the vaccine development. So I think we really need to speed it up, although we've been fast, but however, we need to speed up, need to be faster. It won't be the last time that we have to face this pandemic. This slide I like really much. So, and that's why I put it in bold here. So I think my hypothesis is that the increasing speed of innovation probably will increase the number of paradoxes, and I think it's expected to continue to increase. So let's say the old successful hypothesis everybody sticks to, and if a new theory pops up, that leads to paradigms, means the old is fighting against the new and tells that's a paradigm. So like Einstein did, this quantum thing stuff, it's spooky. So how could this be? And they tag it wrong. And it's the same with the innovator's dilemma. Stick to the old, keep the old. Digital camera, Kodak invented the digital camera and kept it secret and then went bankrupt. It's just another example for that. So all this is pretty well known. If you think of, let's say, Indian methodology. So you have the acting characters in this game, can also call it a world game. So you see the preserver, the creator, and the destroyer. Usually it is Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva in the Indian mythology. But today you can see the preserver as a traditional business model. So and thinking of Einstein, that was classical physics. And today's organizations, these are command control systems. And I think today lots of the baby boomers, they stick to that command control stuff. However, the creator is the one who drives new business models, like the quantum mechanics came into the game. And they are not command control, they're agile and team oriented. And this is more Gen X, Y, and Z, and that's more Brahma. And then you got the destroyer. And that's a market mechanism in our today's business. And that's really hard. In the physics part, it's more like experiments show that quantum computing is really real, and the paradigms then get solved by experiments. And everybody says like, okay, now we understand this kind of theory. The destroyer is chaotic. Just imagine if somebody's went in bankrupt, the people get disemployed, and really lots of stuff went wrong. So, and this is the Shiva part. So, and I think paradoxes always arise. The preservers start to stick to what we have today. Then the new comes in, and then paradoxes arises, and then it's really interesting how we deal with that. And when I went to work, which is rarely because I'm in home office now, but however, I got a radio message so that the European Union failed to achieve their climate targets. And doing that, they now set themselves more ambitious targets. And they say, okay, that sounds paradox, but I like it. Because a high jumper usually don't set the bar higher when he's torn the previous height. First try to master the current one. So that tells me that at least some people in the EU show an approach to deal differently with a paradox. Okay, now quickly jumping to quantum computing. Quantum computing really makes, let's say, use of quantum mechanics, and there are so many paradigms and paradoxes in quantum mechanics that Einstein got spooked and started talking about ghost particles, the spooky mode of action. So what is QC? Why it will change the world? You see here from Google, that's a quantum computer here, and it's 53 qubits quantum computer, and it's been operated by 0 Kelvin with really cold. However, it enables extreme parallel calculation, and quantum computers can solve mathematical problems that in principle could be solved by conventional computing, but only with an unreasonable amount of time, so hundreds or millions of years. Today it's a bit infancy, but we will overcome this within the next 5, 10, or latest 15 years. That's my understanding or my belief. So it has 3 properties. So superposition means being in 2 and 1 more states at once. A quantum entanglement, so being connected, regardless how far apart in time and space they are, reacting the same manner at the same time if one's energetic status is changed. And quantum tunneling means moving across barriers. So first, that sounds nice, but what does that mean? So superposition means that, just remember, bits and bytes, so your mobiles, handies, and all that stuff, that really relies on 0 or 1. It is OR. The qubits of this quantum computer will combine everything. It will tell you like it is 0 and 1 at the same point in time, and not only 0 and 1, but all stages in between. Does that sound paradox? Second is entanglement. So 2 entangled particles, regardless how far they are apart in space. Imagine one is spin left, other is spin right. If you turn one of the particles in another spin, turning into right, the other immediately will turn the other way around, regardless how far they are apart in space. And that violates Einstein. So no information could be faster than speed of light. Yes, it can. Entanglement of quantum particles, they can. And that also leads to the Einstein-Rosen paradox. I don't step into deep because that would take too much time. However, you can read it later on, or ask me if you like to get more information on that. Next is a tunneling, and somehow it seems to me that in order to, let's say, understand entanglement, you also have to go this tunneling. Yeah? So in fact, it means like you can jump over energy barriers. So you can travel maybe in another dimension, stuff like that. It's not really clear. However, we know that this effect this tunnel effect has an effect in a wide variety of places, and it has effects on our classical life. So, and just one example here, it's a nuclear fusion in stars. That usually is not possible, because the temperature and the pressure of our sun, for example, are according to the classical physics, in that we believe are insufficient in terms of energy for thermonuclear fusion of atomic nuclei as a source for the heat radiation, which is the starting point for all life on Earth. Oh, we make now use of this quantum computing. We're starting, and it has, let's say, its promise is to solve very, very complex problems. So the term is NP-hard or NP-complete. So like the traveling salesman problem. So traveling salesman has to visit 200 people, and you have 100-kilometer area. So which is the best way to do that? And it's really hard to calculate. And the business impact, I don't step into deep, but you see it in drug research, you see it in battery improvement, you see it more or less everywhere. So, and also in personalized medicine. So today we see cancer research highly tailored to types of cancer. Yeah, and this will be applied to all medications. So that means precise drug for every person. We think that we can develop a digital twin so that you then can detect diseases very early. So like Rebecca's maybe mimics of people, so we can create them and then recognize very early, before the real person gets sick, we see that his avatar gets sick, yeah, and can predict it and can prevent it. Then we think of an optimal genome. Yeah, this quantum computing may help us to describe this optimal genome, and then subsequently later on exchange the disease-causing genes with healthy ones, and that will bring us into quasi-immortality. And future drugs will be more like mutation monitoring or mutation repair kits. However, countless ethical issues will to be discussed with that. And that will also result in overpopulation, yeah? But that only increases the pressure to leave our planet and to go for space traveling. And that's maybe easy, because if you can get 5,000 years old, then you can travel 1,000 years to fly somewhere. Same with the genomics part and gene therapy. So I think humankind very often still believes that we are crown of creation or crown of evolution. Yeah, but that's not true. This will go on, and we will, let's say, change ourselves. Yeah. So maybe if we can go for this genome modifications, just think of 70% of the teenagers, they would like to look like Angela Jolie or Brad Pitt or both. Yeah, or that dream pair at that point in time. So in later third arm or wing could be interesting, stuff like that. Yeah, just think of that. Does that sound paradox? To me, not. And the boundaries between genera and species will dissolve. Yeah, and we see this blurring boundaries already within digitalization. But it will go on even further. So artificial intelligence, so human and machine will merge. Yeah, so artificial knees and hip joints is just the start. AI, yeah, it will. I think quantum computing might support this development of AI, so of really autonomous thinking, so really living beside us. So very often is then you got this dystopias like AI will immediately start beginning and implementing highly sophisticated plans for the destruction of mankind. Yeah, so iRobot and Terminator, just think of that. So I don't believe in that. Yeah, I think AI is as interested in humans as everyday person is in the form of variants of foreign leaves. So they have no interest at all, because they differ fundamentally from humans or from living. So they don't understand the concept of death or inheritance, and don't need to breathe, and they don't need to fight against each other or other machines over scarce goods. That's only what mans do. So, and is a machine then dead or alive? Yeah, how want we to determine at dead or alive? Yeah, or is AI not allowed to live until we can meet her as a human machine hybrid at a sausage stand and have a philosophical chat? Think of this. So, okay, so in my scenario, only the aliens are missing, but maybe they're already amongst us. And that brings me back to a paradox, the Fermi paradox. And that's a train of thought by the physicist Enrico Fermi in early 1950s. And he said, okay, extraterrestrial intelligence can sustain technology, advanced civilizations for millions of years. So we can do it for, I think, 10,000 years. Yeah. But we will do it for 1 million. So, and that means we could colonize whole galaxies, so also the other terrestrians, yeah? And then they should be here, but that hasn't been happened so far, yeah? So the fact that that has not happened, that's a paradox. But what's the answer on that? So it's not so easy. Forecasts are difficult, especially when they concern the future. That's a famous spelling from Karl Valentin, Mark Twain, Winston Churchill, Niels Bohr, Kurt Tucholsky, and some more. However, innovation is just a thought away. And with that, I would go to my closing remarks and do 2 acknowledgements. One is for Dieter. Thank you for all the inspiring discussions about innovation. And the other is to Ruth. Thank you for all the inspiring discussions about everything. And with that, I thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it, and would like to hand over back to Max.
Thank you very much, Ulf, for this amazing talk. I have to say, I love Paradox too. I'm so much looking forward to the time when we can talk to AI at the sausage stand, and much, much more than this. I'm looking forward to your science fiction book that you hopefully will publish soon. Thank you very much for this. So, and now we will have a short break, about 10 minutes until 7:30 Central European time. After this short break, we will have the 2 final talks by His Excellency Tomas Čepaitis and Dr. Nelly BenHayoun-Stépanian. And after this, there will be our Q&A session. So if you have any questions so far, please put them in the chat here on Zoom or post them, comment them on YouTube, and we will care for addressing them, addressing the speakers afterwards. So now a short bio break and see you afterwards. Bye-bye.
Ce n'est pas un drame si je ne fais plus la fête. Plus c'est sereine, nous fais-tu juste la guerre? La vie est une chienne qu'il faut tenir en laisse. Vivre me hante, pour ceux qui m'entourent m'a rendu méchante. Si je rate, je recommence. Quand je suis triste, je chante. Ne jamais tout donner de moi. Dans ce monde, c'est le diable qui est roi. Elles me disent que j'ai la poisse. Blague à part devienne où ça passe. Si je pouvais, je vivrais seul, loin des problèmes et des dilemmes. Na, 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 na. Si je pouvais, je vivrais seul, loin de mes chaînes et des gens que j'aime. Na, 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 na. Si je pouvais, je vivrais seul, loin des problèmes et des dilemmes. Na, 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 na. Si je pouvais, je vivrais seul, loin de mes chaînes et des gens que j'aime. Na, 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 na. Si je pouvais, je vivrais seul, loin des problèmes et des dilemmes. Na, 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 na. Si je pouvais, je vivrais seul, loin de mes chaînes et des gens que j'aime. Na, 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 na. Si je pouvais, je vivrais seul, loin des problèmes et des dilemmes. Na, 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 na. Si je pouvais, je vivrais seul, loin de mes chaînes et des gens que j'aime. Na, 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 na.
Möchtest du gerne am Telefon mehr verkaufen?
Live? Okay, so here we go again. I hope you are all back to the screen. And now we're up for the two final speakers. And it's my honor to introduce Tomas Čepaitis, His Excellency Tomas Čepaitis, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Užupis, without whom this event would surely not happen. So this is how he describes himself, and I have to warn you, it might be a little bit paradox. I have 3 birthdays, according to Facebook. April 11th in 1971, it's my Užupis or communio birthday. June 5th, 1959, is my passport of family's mom and dad birthday in Moscow. And finally, moving birthday when I am always 104, for today on the year of 1916. Since then I grew up, visited schools, sometimes read thousands of books under the blanket, fooled around, hitchhiked over the USSR, studied literature and wines in Moscow, translated stories, poems, plays, made poetic films, studied astrology and alchemy, took part in the independence of Lithuania, wrote librettos, and was a journalist in the 1990s. Married, established Užupis Republic, became its foreign minister, wrote its constitution with a friend. Lived in USA for 1 year in Sufi, Quaker camps, and New York, studied art and drama there. Upon returning, translated books, plays again, wrote travelogues and poems, appointed over 600 ambassadors and consuls. Thank you for that. Issued 5 books of poetry and 5 of translation. Married again, listened to the depressive songs around, tried to sing my little song, was expelled from everywhere like cheese. I'm working with voice now, creating UžupisUniversity.com, joined the Catholic Church like the water by the river. Still don't know what I am doing here. So do we. So now I'm very, very happy to welcome Tomas. I hope you can hear us, and I see you unmuted yourself, and I hope you can share your camera with us.
Oh, camera. You say camera, but well, all this.
Maybe we can help from here. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, okay. I have to mute by mute, pin, rename, hide. No, yes.
Ah, yeah.
There is no such so much light here, so I can somehow.
It looks quite cozy. So, Tomas, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Max. Your Excellency, Max Harish, Ambassador to Munich and to the Globals. Here am I, and it's a professor, Professor Goat, a goat professor. So I will talk a little bit about one man whom I like. He's a writer, and he was called the Prince of the Paradox. But in the beginning, I will speak a little bit about Užupis, because I am not too sure that all you know what is Užupis. You can read about that. There are a lot of films made about it, and articles in the press. Okay. My beginning of my speech was like that. I have rather ungrateful task to present paradox among the colleagues who have more mathematical, sociologist, or artistic minds, floating in the obscure and nothing certain land of literature, a creepy, half-flying, half-crawling wagon of human knowledge that relies on talks, walks, inspirations, characters, weaknesses, peculiarities, where there are no straight lines, graphics, or equalities. But first I will touch Užupis. Let me begin from the theme that proposed the name of Symposium. Paradoxically, I had not the slightest notion why His Excellency Max Harish named it so. Would we be obliged to apply paradoxes everywhere after the symposium? Would we elaborate algorithm for doing that? In short, I didn't understand why the paradox should be applied. But later, Max explained me that he thought about Užupis Republic as a like example of or maybe a good example of applied paradoxes. Then I will post my opinion, because I live here and I'm Minister of Foreign Affairs anyway. Of course, in Užupis, as an old district of the old town of Vilnius, there are a lot of eccentric features. Beginning from its geography, it is a part of the old town, and at the same time not a part, because it's divided by a river and 9 bridges. It has the highest and lowest landscape points in Vilnius. The richest and most poor people live here. Here we could meet the poorest alcoholic, Sasha, who is a Socrates-style philosopher, and Minister of Economics of Lithuania, who is a total dummy. The only Tibet square in Europe and the only Belarusian church in Vilnius are situated here too. So it was historically always eccentric place. I don't know why, that's a secret maybe. But in my view, these paradoxes were more like a background, or rather one of Republic's features. I took Užupis more poetically, spotting a saudade in it, a Portuguese name for the feeling of something lost, but charming, which name you try to remember, lost and forgotten, kind of longing. But Užupis is home for many a business company too. Also, heroic deeds of Užupians in the April 1st revolution, it's our national day, the Fool's Day, April 1st. Contrast with the bad fame of the criminal district, which is still held here, because thefts today, all the expensive apparature was stolen from our studio, Sonic Academy, where I lead a workshop on poetry and voice. Okay, But it is here, not in the Sorbonne University or United Nations, that Užupis constitution was written, declaring mottos: don't win, don't defend, don't give up. And I guess that is our main paradox. Yes, we declared so because when we settled down in Užupis, we were addressed with many aggressive fists of the aborigos. Užupis has very peninsular consciousness, like insular consciousness, but it's kind of peninsula divided by the river. In response, we showed them not our fists, though we could do that, but open palms, which became our symbol, our flag. An open palm with a hole in the middle. Everything passes. But paradoxically, both the fist and the open palm became our energy boosters. You cannot hold fist all the time, you'll collapse. You cannot either hold an open palm all the time, we are not saints. But their interchange reminds us pumping of the heart. Hop, hoo, hop, hoo. It is a rhythm of life. Take and give and take. The writer who was called the Prince of Paradox some 100 years ago have written around 4,000 essays, 10 novels, a couple of plays, 7 biographies, a lot of romantic poems. Since our symposium takes place in Munich, I tried to find what is translated into German, and there is a lot. So maybe you have heard of him, Gilbert K. Chesterton. If not, I advise you to read his books. He was a prophet, though never called himself one. Neither he pretended to be a writer or philosopher. His Napoleon of Notting Hill predicted Užupis. 2 districts of London 100 years ago declared self-rule, Kensington and Notting Hill, with medieval ideals, and others follow them. In his novel The Man Who Was Thursday, 6 anarchists spy each other to find in the end that all they are police agents fighting with terrorism. Only nobody knows who is the 7th anarchist, called Sunday. In other novel, The Ball and the Cross, 2 Englishmen cross all England looking for a place to fight. One defends atheism, another the dogma of Immaculata Conceptia of Mary, Virgin Mary, finding themselves in the end in psychiatric asylum where devil is a chief doctor. In another novel, a man crosses all the world with many adventures to return home through the window. In Flying In, 2 friends under the prohibition of alcohol under prohibition, God save us from such a fate, of alcohol, when all the pubs are closed, travel around England with a carriage full of barrels of beer and cheese, because it's not stated in the papers that you cannot carry them. It's not a pub. It's like, but well, okay. Chesterton does object to the groundlessness of materialism and analyzing, which is Descartes' way of thinking, among other things. There are ingenious ways of setting up an alternative reality with different rules to underline the arbitrariness of the rules that seem to govern our world, the rules to which we react, all we, at least I am reacting. Well, it's maybe, well, it's like, well, I'm like a doll of the these powers, but I used to react very simply to the environment, so I have no shield, and I somehow deal with that, what society gives me. Somehow it is not making me mad. So there are ingenious way of setting up an alternative reality with different rules to underline that they are by no means based in logic. There is no much logic even in railways, because the railway system was a phantasm, an idea, super idea of the end of the 90s. Dostoevsky was afraid of that it's like a spiders, all the railways, they are gonna eat the Europe. Even in them, even in machines, there are not so much logic, because somehow this rearranging the trains, they always putting them into some secret or back pockets. They produce another paradoxes or problems. It's real paradoxes. And that materialistic reductionism deserves to be given no epistemic privileges. They are elfland, these ingenious ways, or the reality of myth. Myths stiffen, yes, like well, communist myth is stiffened after some time, or well, there were many myths who became clay myths, but when they are alive, lively myths is what we need, because we have no obligation to fight Descartes, to do something to our minds, or to somehow diminish the role of our cleverness, which we really need. But we live the myth. So let us revive myths of the places, of your places where you live, of our doxas, beliefs, paradoxes, and of our occupations, because I see that people here are very in what they are doing. Each of today's speakers lives in a wonderful myth. It is truth, not a lie. Let's share them between us. And guess in which story we are living. It's very interesting. Where we live. What are our roles? Okay. Speaking about thinking or reasoning processes, straight reasoning, Chesterton describes the madman whose views are highly logical and internally consistent. They simply lead to a very bleak and impoverished world, to a very uninteresting world. Madmen are very reasonable and very clever in some sense. They can explain everything. But he believes in the thing that is called common sense, how it's called sensus communale, or how it's in Latin. And in that respect, his thinking is opposite of Descartes. But it is certainly internalist. Common sense is within each of us. Only we can reach it, or somehow don't value it, because it's common. Everybody has it. It's not a feature of some elite, of academic or thinking elite or any other elite. It's a common sense. And maybe now I see the world as a very snobbish place, which there are some ideas that help people to feel the superiority of others. I have in myself them too, of course. But that's not true. True is that we all somehow understand each other by common sense. Well, I will speak on that more, but Descartes says the same in his Discours de la méthode. He speaks that le bon sens, or la raison, is ability to think in a right way and differ truth from lie. Though comparing these two great men, one French, another English, we can say that the English man jumped higher. In fact, so high, though he was very fat and big man, Chesterton, that he understood that he understands nothing and he needs a hint for the whole picture. To have a whole picture, he needs a hint, some advice. This hint from heaven, which we found in his works, appears not in the shape of thought or idea or even insight or some advice or some essay, but as he was a writer, and here I defend literature, though it's only fiction, but it appears as some interflow of happy circumstances, which bring everything which the things, when the things are in a tragic position, in a very catastrophic, on a catastrophic edge, somehow it brings us to the happy end. These happy circumstances, a sparkle of sunset that cheers up the disillusioned hero who is going to hang himself because there is no other option. Some comic figure on the street that goes against all odds, proving that the world is not so structured and hopeless and good as the newspapers, or bad as the newspapers and institutions say. You can call his beliefs weak because there is nothing so much certain in them, and it's again fiction. But it's risky to say so, but because in fact it is not so easy to differ weakness from strength. A lot of people, even in youth, they adore strength, any strength, and children's view is most logical, because they call the strength every working thing. And it's hard to draw a line on which Chesterton's paradoxes stop to express absolutely healthy freedom of reasoning, that I follow my free mind, and start to resemble too light movement of spirit, which was in his time there. And in our time, it's a popular yogas, or I don't know, in his time it was Blavatsky and Besant, this Theosophias and all these things that they pretended that they are real and very high spiritually high. Paradoxality of his characters, for example, Mr. Pond in the book Paradoxes of Mr. Pond, begin from the hero. He is a round, bleak man with the eyes of the fish, a London clerk, a common man, like us. It's we can say, of course, we are not like him, but he's just, you cannot say everything special about him. And that's a paradox, because he's speaking with the paradox arouses from the expectation of us, of the reader, to look for the interesting people, for the great people, or for some for the essence of the world among artists, among some brilliant people. But Chesterton states that they are these common people who rarely speak at all, They are the most interesting. When he says a word, you have to think for a day about the wisdom that this man produced. Just a street, some person. Contrary, there were two paradoxalists, big paradoxalists in his time, Oscar Wilde, whose paradoxes were very cynical, but they, in the end, in the cynical society, in the vile society, in the hypocrite society, it made some good, because evil multiplied to evil, it somehow makes well, positive result in epigrams. In another one, Bernard Shaw, whom, for example, one example of his paradox is he was a poor but honest man. Poor but honest. It isn't true, and it's rather humiliating. Poor people are mostly honest, or at least try to be honest. When rich people, I think, never think about that. It's not their kind of, you know, is not what they adore. Now, I just want to attract your attention to one very simple thing which literature can help to understand our paradox and its genesis. One thing would help us to see through them, through the paradox. Here is a list of paradoxal statements or sentences given by the website Literary Devices. The beginning of the end. We all use it. If you don't risk anything, you risk everything. Earn money by spending it. The pen is mightier than the sword. The more you give, the more you get. The best way out is always through. Seen as such, written here on the screen or pronounced as the phrases, they of course require a second thought and may look funny or wise or mind-opening, but they lack something crucial. And this is where a creepy, half-flying, half-crawling wagon of literature can do us much good. Because literature is about people, about characters, heroes, names, individualities, soul, in short, about us, so different people. If we will put some person's name behind every saying, everything changes. We see drama, truth, inevitability of such saying in the lips of this person. It is no more paradoxal. It is congenial to the person. It is his or her situation, essence in a given moment, and we cannot call it a paradox, I think, because it so fits to this or that person. If we know it, of course, we should know a person to say, oh, that's him. Yeah. Oh, for example, paradoxes of Mr. Pond. The pencil was red enough, that's why it left black marks. It seems maybe a nonsense, but if you try a red pencil, which is used many times, it would really leave a black marks. I don't know why. Marshal Grock's plan failed because of the ideal discipline in his army. That reminds me of this physical law when the soldiers pass the bridge very in a very good order, the bridge would fall. We would surely notice the giant if he won't be so big. This one is good. We would surely notice the giant if he won't be so big, because the giant just stepped over them and they couldn't see him. The two reached so full peace that one of them naturally killed another. That is very congenial to our tolerant, so-called tolerant times. The two reached so full peace that one of them naturally killed another. That's an outcome that logically well, it's logical, emotionally logical. He says these paradoxes, he speaks in paradoxes, Mr. Pond, and his pals can't reject the temptation to ask for the explanation. How come? How come that it is so? And Chesterton's story then is built on the revealing, opening the paradox. Why? He also opens the Proverbs, explains no, maybe it's not so called in English a proverb, but a man, well, I lack my English to explain that thing. But Mr. Point is, as I said, rather uninteresting person when you see him on the street. Just a man, you cannot say everything. But inside, it's very interesting and paradoxical from head to toes. As is Catholic priest and detective, whom you maybe know better, Father Brown. Father Brown's stories, there are 8 or 9 books of Father Brown's stories where this priest is a detective. All his solutions are paradoxical, and they are not made by, maybe, of course, Chesterton is the author, but they are not methods, but his seeing who is a murderer is very seems very paradoxical, but after that you understand that is the only one, that is very simple, but it's very hard to guess, really, comparing even with Agatha Christie or I don't know whom. Well, I see that my time is going to an end, so I will just publish the paper, send the paper to Max, and now we'll read some.
Beautiful.
Well, but yeah, here I.
Thank you, This Excellency.
Yeah, it's your time to speak. And I'm sitting here now.
No, but I could listen to you forever, Thomas.
Okay.
Nice to see you. I wish we were all in Uzupis right now. Okay, so I guess I'm taking, are you Max?
Yes, Max is here, and Max would quickly introduce you, if this is okay. If you don't want to be the moderator or the host, I would never deny this, but I will make it short, not to steal too much of your time. So first of all, Tomas, thank you so much for just creating the living myth of Uzupis, and I'm so looking forward to visiting it again and just to have a beer with Sasha and the economics minister together.
Yes, Max, and can I finish with 2 sentences, because they
2
are...
sentences, yes. But
okay.
You have to ask Nelly, but I think she's okay with 2 sentences.
Yeah, sorry, Nelly. Yeah, I love you so.
I'm not in a hurry. I'm okay. I'm not going anywhere.
Cool.
Yeah, the habit of paradoxes remained with Chesterton forever. He felt that they are easy to make fireworks, but he sensed the real courage he needs to put forward a common sense saying, a banal moral laws. Only they can hold the world together. His common sense was not given to him. It was a choice, dramatic as any other true choice. Well, I will mention one figure also. After Descartes, who, answering to Marx, who posed the straight thinking and thinking about what we really know, not clinging to an illusion, we have in the 18th century a great figure of Lawrence Sterne, with his life and opinions of Tristram Shandy Esquire, which was two ages, 200 years before the next investigation into the woolly mind that don't go straight. It goes back, it returns. The hero is born on the page 200. because he's sitting in the mama's belly and is looking, investigating the possibilities or noticing the world. And he has doesn't like what he sees from the belly. Lawrence Stern wrote this novel in 18th century. So this, I think, is another way of thinking. He showed it so obviously that people don't think like Descartes posed. They are thinking in some this way and this is a real picture of human mind. So there is a way. There is a railway called Stern Railways, which gave this showed this mode of thinking. Thank you very much. Sorry, Nelly.
Thank you, Tomas. Thank you so much. And now I will introduce Nelly very briefly. Nelly BenHayoun, PhD, is an award-winning designer of experiences, a French filmmaker who creates multi-dimensional experiential projects at the intersection of film, science, tech, theater, politics, and design. Wired awarded her the inaugural Innovation Fellowship in 2014, and Icon magazine recognized Dr. BenHayoun as one of the top 50 designers shaping the future. In 2018, Nelly has been distinguished as the first on the list of top 50 women on the speaker circuit by the Drum magazine, while in 2017, Creative Review named her one of the creative leaders, selecting 50 creatives they felt were driving change not just within their organization, but in the world at large. And I think this is not underestimated. Design selected her as one of the 50 inspirational women in architecture and design. She's the founder and director of the International Space Orchestra, the world's first orchestra of NASA space scientists and astronauts, and the founder of the tuition-free University of the Underground, which includes board members and activists like Professor Noam Chomsky and Professor Arjun Appadurai. This tuition-free educative and cultural program is supporting plurality of thinking, free and transnational teaching and unconventional practices in the basement of nightclubs. And I can highly recommend to visit this university if you have the chance. I was so lucky to be visiting the University of the Underground summer school on post-nation states in New York, and this definitely changed my mind. It was completely insane. The only thing that was missing was going to the moon with Nelly, but I think now she will give us an impression of her ideas about looking at the sky to find out more about about the Earth. So I'm very looking forward to her talk. Nelly, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Max. I mean, thanks for the introduction, but also thank you for putting the whole event together.
Those are balloons for you, balloons for the sky.
Yay, balloons, Thomas, that's the spirit. We love balloons. And actually, I want to congratulate you as well, Max, because I think, you know, in the words of Hannah Arendt, who is a political theorist, and we've heard about Descartes and we've heard about other philosophers, but let's hear about Hannah Arendt and what she said. She said that to act is to begin something new in the world, that is action. And I think by putting together the Uzu Peace University, Max, you're doing just that. You're putting things into action. So it starts there, really, to start to develop nice communities, putting them together to actually discuss paradoxical ideas, critical ideas. And I'm hoping that you all have enjoyed as much as I did this afternoon, because it's been really fascinating to hear from each of the speakers. So thank you so much for putting this together, Max. So look.
You're welcome.
I don't know, I'm gonna try and yes, for those of you that don't know me, I mean, I guess by now you gather the fact that I have this horrible French accent, right? A horrible French accent, it just never goes, it's just right there into my face, really. And that makes it very difficult for people to understand me without subtitle. So hopefully I will make sense to you. I hope I'm not going to be my own paradox somehow after the end of this presentation, but I'm going to try and do my best with this accent of mine. I'm just going to time myself as well, because I have a tendency to speak for hours. But, you know, Max asked me to speak about paradox in the sky and really paradox in space, you know, and that's, you know, I never really thought about space as a paradox, but when I started to think about it, I had like this whole animation. I mean, you can see I'm spending a lot of time on my own playing with Instagrams and things like that. And of course, as I mentioned, I have a tendency to go beyond time, and we only have 50 minutes and I have tons of things to tell you. So anyway, to go into the paradox of space, you know, I never really think about space as a paradox, but I always think about it as a system, really. And we're going to speak about that. But really, actually, this is a paradox itself. Like this, what you're looking at on my screen is actually the way that decisions are being taken in the space industry. And as you can see, it takes place in these rooms where there is basically square sessions where committees get to meet with each other, and each committee represents a different section of space, whether it's technology or whether it's searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, or whether it's about the next plan on the moon and so forth. And each of these technical committees or cultural committees, if you wish, are having experts in them that are being elected. And as you can see, it's kind of like a permanency of, you know, regular old white male. And that is a pattern that has never been questioned, really. So that's in itself is a paradox, because when we think about space, basically, often maybe some of you have got this really poetic idea, which I have as well, but they are actually really romantic ideas of what space is in our head, but actually what space is in reality is this, you know, it's actually the idea of, not the idea, the actual fact that head of space agency are all men. The only woman that is a head of space agency is in Germany, and that's the only woman that is actually there. And in general, it's just a lack of diversity throughout the entire scope of space. So I guess we can say that space is not for everyone. It should be for everyone, but the bottom line is technology is not accessible to all. So by definition, actually the future that is being presented by space is actually a future that is being determined by the people who make technology. And unfortunately, they are extremely limited, and they are mainly from the US and especially based in the Silicon Valley, right? Space is a system. I think we tend to forget about it. And maybe that's where the paradox comes from, is that as a system, it's very barely challenging itself. And the reason for that is because, again, we have a lack of diversity, and there is a lack of critical thinking throughout this entire system. And it's been set up in a way and in a manner that you do not have any conflict that take place within it. I mean, if there is conflict, there are many conflicts to do with science and actual scientific facts, but very rarely so cultural questioning or critical interrogation as to why are we aiming to go in outer space. And then space is copying Earth. I think that's probably the ultimate paradox in a way. I mean, to me at least, is the fact that when there is a question of a vision for space, and who are the people that are visionary in the space realm, most people will tell you things like, oh, Elon Musk is a visionary. But what is the vision of Elon Musk, who is the person behind SpaceX, or Blue Origin, the person behind Amazon, or NASA itself? What is the vision that they offer us? The vision that they are offering us is the colonization of the moon, or to go on Mars as we used to colonize territories in the past. This idea that we're going to go and use resources out there and mine them and use them for economic purposes as a new landscape for, neoliberalist culture, right? The idea that suddenly we are lacking very valuable material on planet Earth. So therefore, let's just go and mine the moon. That's the plan. That's the grand vision for the future of humanity, to go and mine the moon, to make actually the moon look like a piece of cheese. I mean, think about it. Like, this is the ultimate paradox, that we as a society cannot, even with creativity and with imagination, actually come up with any radical form of thinking for the future. We cannot think beyond the system that we have on this planet. We cannot think beyond nation states. We cannot think that there is perhaps other format for politics than democracy or authoritarian regimes, or maybe there is in-between formats, you know, that we've not explored. Maybe we should take the time to explore on new systems. And actually the idea that we could look at the moon as a place for radical imagination, as opposed as a place to reproduce what we have done on planet Earth for the past hundreds and hundreds of years, which basically is the colonization, empires, going around and kind of like mining and resources. So it's actually quite a sad, you know, and I guess I'm, you know, I know I'm the last speaker, so I shouldn't be really the one kind of like, you know, making of paradox this kind of sad vision, but I think there is hope. And I see the hope, at least for the paradox of space, into these words, into the idea of plurality, right? And plurality is the idea that suddenly we're not going to have one ideology that is going to rule it all. And in order for us to enact plurality, then perhaps we should start thinking about invading the Astronautical Congress, invading these committees, having different type of people on that table, so that suddenly we can come up with different visions and different system thinking for the future of humanity, right? And that to me is coming back to the idea of organizing communities. So to actually find ways to empower communities that are not finding themselves in places of power, and actually giving them the tools to organize themselves so that they can actually leverage, you know, actually like going in there and actually have some form of power as well. And that to me also comes with the idea of long-term thinking and this idea of non-repeating history. And so to actually like find ways and means to actually demonstrate that what we've done with history wasn't the best visions, that war might not be the best way to actually think about the future of humanity, because by definition, war is death. You know, and that perhaps there needs to be a moment where we build new economical system, we build new political system, we build new sociological system. So what are the plan with space? Yes, you know, maybe, you know, Max, I don't know exactly what you were thinking in terms of like this presentation, or how I could kind of talk about it and maybe, you know, enter some conversation and discussion with the audience. But I don't know if any of you are familiar with the plans, so let me just kind of run you through some of them. So the idea that one of the ideas is what we call terraforming. So terraforming is in itself a paradox. You know, when I'm saying that it's about copying Earth, this is exactly what it is. It's the fact that Mars potentially could become an Earth-like planet. And in order to make Mars an Earth-like planet, we need to bring oxygen on that planet. So therefore, we need to actually bring, you know, anything that kind of allow trees to grow. Oxygen is one of them. Carbonate is another. So we need to kind of like, and actually oxygen, you know, smoke up carbon. So the idea that to make it something that we can breathe into, and an atmosphere that we can breathe into, we need to terraform. So that's one of the concepts. Now, Mars has been a destination for a long time. And whenever you would go in an astronautical congress, you know, in the past 5 years, the idea was that we will go on Mars, and Mars will be the next destination for humanity. And then once we will be on Mars, we will terraform Mars so it can welcome humans. But then we realized quite quickly that actually we didn't have the tools right now to do that. And also we needed fuel to get there. And in order to get fuel, we need a recharge station. And so to have a recharge station, then it sounded a very much better idea, and also a very better political agenda, because it's more realizable, it's more feasible to actually go to the moon. So these are some of the different, you know, tools that I mentioned are some different places. So MIT is developing basically these instruments, which is about actually building oxygen using carbon. It's called the MOXIE, if you want to look into it. There is also, you know, other simulations that are taking place in different places. But anyway, bottom line is we realized quite quickly Mars cannot be the future destination. So let's focus on the moon. The moon our universal satellite. You know, it's not a planet, it's a satellite. But, you know, we thought, okay, we're just gonna use it and actually make it a place where we can recharge fuel so that eventually down the line we can go to Mars. But that seems much more feasible, right? Going to the moon, because we already went to the moon. But now the grand plan is to go to the moon, but to go to the moon to stay. I mean, that's the greatest mission that the greatest vision that we could come up with as humanity, is that, like, the idea that now we're going to go and we're going to stay. Great. So we effectively are colonizing, and that word colonizing has been used pretty heavily in the space industry, with complete disregard about the fact that, you know, it comes with a very loaded history, and you know, but at the same time it is what it is, right? So at least let's use the words that are actually there. And then the current mission that is being developed at NASA is called the Artemis mission. Now, obviously, I don't know if, this is the plan by NASA, as in Trump NASA. So you need to know that, and that's something that maybe some of, you know, we tend to forget, but NASA is a military agency at the end of the day, and it's receiving its funding by, citizens and by taxpayer money. And every time there is a new administration started in the US, there is a new plan and there is a new focus. So when Obama was in power, the vision was to actually go onto an asteroid and mine an asteroid. When it was Trump, it was the Artemis mission, which is the plan of going to the moon to stay, colonizing the moon to stay. And because the US didn't want to spend too crazy amount of money in it, they actually welcome business opportunities from all over the world. So, you know, you could actually respond to a bid anywhere in the world and actually win a contract together with NASA to actually send your mission into onto the moon. So to actually like open up the moon as a Wall Street, so very much making it like a, you know, the best offer can come, and the best offer can kind of like get a spot into mining that landscape. So I guess that's where we are. So that's all of these things are happening in the background. And so, you know, I'm a filmmaker, and I guess that's, you mentioned it, Max. And so currently I'm working on a new film. I mean, obviously it's very early stage for me to share it with you because we are in the midst of like developing it. And of course, you know, Corona hated us like anyone else, you know, so making a film in a time of pandemic is not ideal. But the plan with Red Moon is it's a feature-length film, it's a documentary, and it's currently in development, as I mentioned. And the idea is to actually work with my doppelganger. And I don't know if Max, you mentioned it, but I have two doppelgangers that I'm working with. So two women that look like me. And for the past 5 years, we've been going around the world in different places at different time, or at the same time. I mean, that's the mastery of it, really, to be at the same, you know, at different place at the same time. And we've been pitching projects all around and kind of like growing different ideas and, you know, talking about plurality. That's really was the plan. Now, the plan with my doppelganger is that actually it turns out that I also have doppelganger families. So I also have a doppelganger in Armenia, and I also have a doppelganger in Algeria, which are my two countries of origin, right? My mom is from Armenia, my dad is from Algeria. So I decided to actually get, you know, these families from Armenia and Algeria that look like my family in France to respond to the task of thinking about a moon utopia. So actually, if we were to ask a family that went through colonization in Algeria to think about the moon and, you know, what could happen on the moon. And if we were to think and ask a family in Armenia who survived the genocide to think about the moon, then the hypothesis with this film is to say that perhaps they will come up with a different plan. Perhaps their thinking will be very radically different to the vision that is currently being offered by NASA or the European Space Agency. Now, this is what the kind of the intrigue of the entire documentary is about. So we are currently working on our moon utopia together. And the grand plan with this is to actually like present the finding of this to the Astronautical Congress, write it in a form of a paper in a way that the scientific community can understand it, of course, because, you know, you need to also adapt to this audience. But, you know, and of course, the documentary is not perhaps the best medium for this audience specifically. But just to kind of recap, that's what Red Moon is about. And that's currently in development. That's my family currently working on their, moon plan. And I'm realizing I'm already out of time. But I guess, we've been obviously hit by the crisis. So we started to use different tools to think about making this film happen. I'm not gonna I'm gonna share with you literally things that I shouldn't share, which is actually this trailer, which is not really meant to be shared in any way or form, because it's there to pitch really the film, and it's got a lot of footage that we don't get clearance for. But this is my Armenian doppelganger. She's called Lucia Gagramanian, and she's in Yerevan. And this is my other doppelganger, Miriam Amroun, and she's based in Algiers. And she's working with her grandma on her Moon Utopia. So anyway, so, we are really early stages, and we started to shoot a bit, but then as you can see, we had to come up with some interesting way to actually get our space expert on board, because of course we couldn't interview them directly. So anyway, I'm sure there will be a lot of you here in this audience that are finding themselves having to come up with solutions so that we can keep on doing our work in these current times. Anyway, the plan being, like I mentioned, to actually take it to the Astronautical Congress. And I've got the chance to, through different projects that I've done in the past, to be a part of the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute, which is looking for extraterrestrial intelligence out there. It's an institute that has been there since 1985, the SETI Institute, if you want to look it up. 1986, sorry. And it's been created by people like Carl Sagan, Jill Tarter, and others. And the idea there of the SETI Institute was really to try and figure out whether or not we are not alone in the universe. And so that kind of got me into being a part of one of the committee actually of the Astronautical Federation. That's why I spent a fair amount of time with these people. In a way, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure I've got 55,000 more slideshow. This was a previous project also about paradox, which was a paradox of asteroid impacting the planet, which made it into a film called Disaster Playground, where we realized that there is basically nobody at the United Nations very much in charge of doing anything if an asteroid was to strike. And another paradox of space is that actually space scientists can be incredible musicians. And then I will invite you to look it up with the International Space Orchestra, which is an orchestra I run at NASA since 2012. And we've done quite a few bits and blobs, and I'm gonna stop here. Also, another paradox of space is actually, if you want to terraform anything in outer space, you need to start looking into planet Earth and digging down there, finding the most strong bacteria. Anyway, I'm gonna stop here. Be curious and ambitious and never ever give up. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you, Max, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for this mind-blowing talk. And I wish you all the best for all of these projects. And I'm sure you have 1,000 more in the pocket. And I'm not sure whether this was you or one of your beautiful doppelgangers. But anyways, tell you nice greetings to Nelly. And please, maybe we can talk afterwards. Maybe you can help Ujupis to apply for one of these moon grants within NASA together. But let's talk about this later. And so thank you very much. And now it's time for the final the panel and maybe some Q&A. And I would like to invite all of the speakers to unmute themselves and show their cameras. And so before we open for questions by the audience, we collected a few. I think I saw some of the speakers commenting on each other. So I think let's spend some minutes on if you have any comments towards each other now that we're here together in this small little church. Let's use this time. So if anyone has questions to another speaker, please go ahead.
I have a question for you, Max. How come we are in a church? How did that happen?
Well, I have to think about which parts of the answer I am allowed to tell. But first of all, of course, it's not a real church anymore. It's just a building. It's a desecrated church, and it's a digital hub. And I am not allowed to tell where it is. But here behind us, there's some startup working, and the ambassador, His Excellency David Lipkins, He managed to get us in here because he has the key for this church, and I'm not allowed to tell why he has the key and where this church is, but I'm happy that we're here. I hope that's enough for an answer. Digital Hub Munich, yeah. Officially, it's a Digital Hub Munich, if somebody asks. Okay. So, are there any questions, comments by the speakers so far on other talks they heard so far?
Maybe I give one, Nelly. Yeah, Nelly, that was really interesting. Your statement that space is copying Earth, and as I was talking about the Fermi paradoxon, where it says like there must be somebody else outside, then I immediately thought, what would happen if these other species does the same, and what will happen if these two collides, and how we will deal with that. And then Kant came to my mind, like, okay, our own freedom ends where the freedom of the others is starting. And I hope we will do the same when we meet in space, but it will take some time until that happens. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think this is where it becomes really radical, isn't it? This idea that maybe perhaps there is as well this other civilization out there. I think this is where it should start really. And I think this is not where it started, at least from the perspective of what the plans are with space right now. We are not thinking about others when we are developing them. And I think this is this point that you made, Ulf, is actually should perhaps be the start for us to start thinking afresh about, what we might do with space. If we start to consider that there might be, this might be the territory of others. So even though there might not be life effectively on the moon, this might be the territory of someone else.
Yeah, and maybe we did not recognize that they are already there. Who knows? We always think that we know. Let's say we had talks where we heard like, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. But usually people tend to think that they know mostly everything, and then they take it for serious. And then the paradox appears, and then they say like, no, I stick to my paradigm. That's not possible. That's a paradox. That's bad, so on and so forth. So yeah, we are all, let's say, propagating to be open-minded and really to hunt like a truffle pig for these paradoxes and really look into them and then go for change and open your mind. And I think humankind will make really huge progress and hopefully things are getting better.
Thank you. We all hope this. And I have a question for Franz. You talked about the belief systems. Is there something that in particular you think that all humanity should believe in, some kind of motto or some kind of fact that we should all believe in order to change something in this world?
I was just going to ask Nelly if space is not the opium of the people, there was this amazing stupid movie Interstellar that created this new kind of sort of excitement about science and space and so on. But I think we might also face a situation where we understand that going to space is hazardous, difficult, and costly. We are closing space already with a lot of debris in space. Anyway, what should humanity have as a common belief? I think that I outlined in my speech that the best thing we could all believe in is that this planet is big enough for all of us. That this planet holds the possibility to live out all our differences and cultural designs, if you wish, and that we can rearrange our existence on this planet in a way that we can respect each other. That we have borders, not strong borders, but like in a mosaic of subcultures, where we have certain rules, certain beliefs dominating. I remember our old friend Andreas Kulikauskas from Vilnius, who said cultures need a place where they are a little bit dominant, you know, and so this idea that this earth is not a gray mass of the lowest common denominator, but it is an exciting place to recreate images of beliefs that turn into visions, realities, and test beds. I think this could be a common belief of mankind.
Thank you very much. I hope for this too. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I have a question to Rebecca, because you're working with all these communities, and you're doing these crazy projects about Tokyo and this glitch body project, and I mean, this is when you're doing this, you also revealed something about these people and these places, and you also did you get some kind of reaction? Did you, for example, show your project? Did you get some reaction from Japanese people, from people of Tokyo, or from the people that you scanned for this? That you anything you can talk about?
Yes, of course, I get reactions. I mean, it's somehow difficult to like explain what I'm doing, and people can't really relate to it or don't know the technology behind it. And if you scan a body scan is something different. It's something different than just a two-dimensional picture, or even a video of your body is not the same like a 3D object. And you can like look at you from all sides, and you can't really hide anything. And everybody is always pretty excited to see yourself in a different angle. You cannot see, like. And also, of course, I mean, a lot of people like the abstraction of how to transport experience and feelings in a game engine, which is normally used just for computer games. And if you think about computer games, you think about like this ego shooters everybody's playing, but that you can like use this technology to, I don't know, and transfer it into different art context, or yeah, to reveal stories or intimate stories of protagonists who want to tell their stories, and to give them a platform to do so. And it's a really good technology for my work, especially now in the pandemic, because I can still work. I can create spaces where people can meet and not feel like in real life, but maybe, yeah, I think.
Thank you. But, so you did not hear about any Tokyo people that already canceled the flat payment just to move into the city that you created,
No.
the house you created?
I didn't invent this kind of lifestyle. I mean, I just put it into some kind of irrational number. I mean, people live like this. A lot of friends, female friends from Japan live like this, but just like 2 days in a week to just have a free emancipational lifestyle. Because if you live, I mean, usually it's very conservative. Japan is very conservative, and you cannot really move out before you marry. And you can have like kind of a own life, and you don't have to argue with your parents when you're, I don't know, 28 and live at home. So it's kind of a lifestyle. People use it, but not like for 3 months in a row, because it's very, yeah, time consuming to book everything and to live like this as well. So yeah, but yeah.
Thank you. So there was a question on YouTube, a question to Ulf. You mentioned that the AI is not likely to be competing for resources to survive. What about electricity and processor time?
Yeah, very good question. I think this will occur at the very beginning of development of artificial intelligence, and I mean real artificial intelligence. When you take a look at space, then you see that energy is everywhere. Yeah, just take a look at the sun. There's so much energy, so much possibilities. And today we even do not understand how to produce energy in a right way, I would call it. So let's say the grade of effectivity of our today's energy creating systems is totally poor. So we all know that, and that's why we try to get rid of oil and all that stuff. So I assume that there will be, let's say, innovations so that these kind of intelligences are really more or less independent of this kind of energy because it's so much outside and they simply can grab it. And yeah, hope that answers your question.
This is well, okay. So I'm just reading the comments here in the chat. Any other comments by the speakers? Anything else you would like to add to this discussion of tonight and the talks of tonight? Anything else you had on your mind? Are there any other participants? If you would like to raise a question, please raise your hand here in the chat and we can unmute you. Otherwise, there are two questions for Tomas Čepaitis, but I think he's caring for the goat right now. Maybe he has no time to join us tonight. But there was a question about what is the perspective on the paradox of Užupis being a nation within a nation. And I'm sure we have at least two experts on this topic of nations and nation states and Užupis in here. So if anyone is interested in answering this question, please go ahead. So what is the paradox of Užupis being a nation within a nation? On this?
Maybe it's a question of permanent diplomacy. You know, I wanted to include the island of Rose in my thought. I don't know if you are aware of that. In the year 1968, in the May of 1968, a group of people in Italy created an artificial island just outside the territorial borders of Italy. And they were pretty much successful with this nation in the nation. They thought they were exterritorial, but they were not. They were a disco. They were really a place for having fun. And eventually, the Italian Navy came and destroyed the place. So it's actually states or nations are very, very egotistic beings, and they don't accept something as their peer within, unless it's something like San Marino, which or Vatican State. Italy has a way to deal with nations in the nation, but it's as always, and I admire Užupis for that. It's a question of keeping the balance between respect and harmlessness.
I mean, I feel as well that it's in order to challenge an existing system of, you know, nation state, how it exists, you need to kind of speak in a very paradoxal manner. You need to speak the same language than that nation states, it feels like. So I think what you're saying is very true, and this kind of idea of a cyclic diplomacy, that in order to challenge it from within, you have to yourself establish yourself as one of those, so that you can kind of engage this overall nation on the same kind of level or the same linguistics. And that's something actually we teach at the University of the Underground, this idea that in order to challenge institutions or not, you know, to actually rethink systems, then you have to actually like try and first of all infiltrate them from within. So for me, it's kind of like Užupis is a demonstration of that.
Yeah, great. I would even go one step further. I think we will see a nation of one, like we see segment of one in marketing. Yeah. So, just think about, why do we have nations? So why do we as individuals give away our power and empower others? Yeah, it's because the lack of power that we have on ourselves. So digitalization brings more power to us. So you can use fancy algorithms who help you finding the cheapest insurance you need. And it's going on and will go more and more in this direction. So at the end, you can have your own nation. And you have these fancy algorithms that defend you, that make diplomacy for you, that goes to jail for you, goes to court, and all that stuff. So, and I think that it will go into that direction. So just to, let's say, topping on that, what Nelly said and what Rebecca said and Franz said. So.
We have a question by Amy. Maybe if Amy is listening right now, we could unmute her so that she could ask the question. Amy, can you hear us?
Yeah, this is Amy Carl from San Francisco. Thank you, all of you. Hi. So I was really curious about kind of engaging in a creative discussion about, earlier we were talking about kind of different paradoxes of multiple intelligence existing. It was mentioned, you know, on the Earth, on our planet, within our body, in our environment. So I was interested in getting a discussion going about that, and then adding in when artificial intelligence becomes integrated with the biological, how can that play into this paradox further? And this is more, I think, of a creative, fun kind of question.
Yeah, but I should say I started that topic with the reference to my Indian teachers, American Indian teachers. They gave lectures, or they live lectures or workshops about medicine wheel. And eventually we were diving into not only 8 directions in the council, but 8 intelligence in the body. So one interesting and wonderful way to study the equilibrium of intelligences is the native medicine wheel, which starts with creative intelligence, appreciative intelligence, emotional intelligence, remembering intelligence, perceptive intelligence, strategic intelligence, decisive intelligence, and balancing intelligence. So if you go through all this north or east, southeast, and so on directions, you have a model that is proven through many cultures. It's a recurring pattern, as we would say with Christopher Alexander. Yeah. Any other points?
No, Franz, you perfectly matched it. So I'm biologist by education. So, and I think we all experience when you grow older, that you recognize that somehow the child in you is still alive. And I think most people, or the most happy people I met in my life, were the ones who really were successful in keeping their child alive in themselves and accepting that this is another part of their personality, and that goes on and on and on. So it's a continuous development of yourself. And yeah, and I think very often when things went wrong, people denying these kind of personalities, you call it intelligences, and you can call it intelligence in themselves, they deny it, and then things start going wrong. So yeah, perfectly. The question I really like, because you added this AI stuff in, and there, to be honest, I have no clue how this would work together. Maybe this AI also later on, when it merges with yourself, it starts developing further multiple intelligence in yourself. So and then humankind will merge with the artificial intelligence. And maybe one final statement on that. I think you can later on ask yourself what defines to being human or to being alive when this AI arises and is really as intelligent or even more as we are. So what makes us unique? And I think humankind at the end makes unique that we make faults. And then faults is in asterisks to see, because very often paradoxes are named faults, but they aren't. So we should go on making faults.
Yeah, I will try my best to make a lot of faults. Thank you for this. So maybe we have like 1 or 2 last questions. There's a question by Bernard, who is writing his thesis about the Republic of Užupis and its relation to humor and paradox. And Bernard, if you can hear us, we unmuted you, so please go ahead and ask the question.
Hi, I'm Bernard from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And I'm super interested in all these forms of paradoxes. And I was wondering, at one point we were talking about how who do we give power to in the sense of nation within a nation? What do we consider a nation? And then Ulf was saying how power is being used, and I thought to myself, like, okay, then is Užupis in a sense using paradoxes as a tool of power to go from within the system to change the system? If that makes sense. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I read your question also, and I like it really, really much. Yes, to me, the answer from my point of view is a clear yes. Yes, using paradoxes as a power, you can use it as a power. I would totally agree, because that really, as I pointed out a little bit in my speak, like the old hypothesis or the old state of art always uses their state of knowledge as a paradigm. Yeah, and then if somebody new pops up and it's disturbing the order, then it's been called a paradox. So if you think about how to foster change, you should use the paradoxes, because that poses questions to the existing. And if you follow those, then you can improve the existing hypothesis, and it has been shown numerous times in the past. Hope that answers parts of your question.
I think Nelly also wanted to say something.
No, I mean, I guess Ulf just, replied to it, but I think it's a very fair analysis to actually think about, paradox as being the method that Užupis is using to challenge that, Lithuania in itself, basically. So yeah, I think that's exactly, I mean, I wish Tomas was still there so he can tell us how that was, thought through. But yeah, I guess that's fair.
Okay, so I think if no one has some like final comments, this would be the chance. Like if you have anything else to add to this discussion.
Now maybe just one word when I said like false. One of the theories of the creation of the universe tells us that everything came from this let's say Urknall, the first implosion of energy, and energy divided into materia and antimateria. And from our today's hypothesis, physically, both had to be created in the same amount. And materia and antimateria, they destroy each other and go back to energy. So logically, if our theories are all right and perfect, and that's the point here, universe would have exploded and materia and antimateria would have destroyed each other immediately, and then it was back again into energy. But that did not happen. So it was a slightly more portion of materia, or let's say slightly more dividing. So everything you see and everything we are, you, myself, it's materia. And that's the part that has been survived this initial fire. And that, in our understanding, was an accident. It was a fault. So our all existences are based on a fault, if you take our theories physically of today as right. Think about that.
Right. All right, so then I'm very glad this big fault has happened, and maybe the faulty thing is the right thing, and this would be a very, very nice paradox to end this unbelievable symposium. I have to say thank you so much to the speakers. This was just incredible. I would have never expected this, and thank you so much for all the people in the audience listening to us tonight. The live stream will be available afterwards as a recording, and Rebecca will be also preparing a virtual reality space where you can explore the talks of today. And we will also put these talks into a book that we will publish in a few days. So there's no way you can miss what happened today.
No pressure. I didn't realize. Whoa.
So, and
I should have written the talk then.
well, I mean, still we have your talk, so it's amazing enough that you participated. We have for people who want to inform themselves a little bit more about Užupis, we can maybe put some links into the chat now about the university and the Republic of Užupis.
And I think the Republic of Užupis as well. I want to say to also all the listeners, but we have one of our board members of the University of the Underground that is currently in trouble because a partner, Pussy Riot, has been actually put into jail now. He's currently risking 3 years of jail again, just for challenging Putin and basically, sharing information about manifestation and protest. And so next week, there will be a whole big, event being put together to try and release Navalny and Pussy Riot from jail. And I guess if we can try from our part with Užupis to, bring in a bit of international pressure on this, Putin hate international pressure. And that worked in the past to actually get Masha and Nadia out of jail. So I think if any of you can help, please do so, because next week we need to try and figure out a way to get them out.
Okay, please, if you have just let us know how we can help, or if you have some links, please share them with us or put them here in the chat, and we are more than happy, of course. I mean, we're a big family, so all right. So then now it's my duty and pleasure to say thank you very much and goodbye. I will do my best to organize something similar in the future. And just for now, have a very nice evening and see you and bye everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
That's it.